Good morning, students. Today we're going to talk about gay adolescents. Not just actually gay adolescents, but gay people in general. To start, let's begin with a few information about terms. LGBTQ. Okay, those words are thrown out a lot. What does it all mean? Lesbian, okay, women attracted to women. Gay, typically men attracted to men, can also refer to women. Bisexual, attracted to both sexes. Q, questioning, not sure, don't know, might be interested, might not. Transgendered, the T. Transgender people feel like they were born in the wrong body, I was meant to be a man or meant to be a woman or whatever else, also sometimes consider sex reassignment surgery. The problem is when we lump those words together that they're very different needs in very different populations, not very different, but a lot of times what would happen is the T is silent is one of the things that we talk about, that the needs of transgendered people aren't really considered in the group of gay and lesbian issues. So it kind of is a heterogeneous group, and we sometimes lump people together just because it's like, well, we don't know where else to put people, and we want to categorize people, we want things to be black and white, and it's not always black and white. So we're not going to talk that much about transgendered people today. We are going to talk more about gay people. But these issues are kind of intertwined as far as a transgendered person might experience the same process of coming out as far as recognizing that a person's transgendered and those things. So there's some similarities in terms of development and trajectory and in terms of our heterosexist society. So let me talk up to you about a few guiding principles before we get going. One, I don't think people choose to be gay. I think there's an abundance of research that suggests that no one chooses to be gay. Instead, I think there's complex genetic and biological reasons that people are gay, sometimes contextual and situational reasons, I get that. But I think it's a misguided assumption to think that people choose to be gay. Particularly in our society, why would you choose to be, why would you choose behavior that is incredibly discriminated against, that puts you at risk for abuse, that puts you at risk for huge discrimination, that makes it dangerous to be who you are? Most people wouldn't choose that, if they had a choice in the matter. So it's who you are. You're born that way. If we can, quote from Lady Gaga, there's the first time I've ever done that in a lecture. So the other thing I feel like is I'm strongly, as far as guiding premises, I feel strongly that gay people are entitled to every measure of support under the law, and I don't just mean that in terms of fair housing, but I mean that in terms of marriage, I mean that in terms of adopting kids, I mean that in terms of whatever legal and financial and societal benefits come from partnering. I think they should be extended to partners of same sex. That's my guiding principle, and I feel strongly about that. The other thing I think that's important as a guiding principle for you to know is that being gay is not associated with psychopathology. The only extent to which that's true, things like higher suicide rate for adolescents who are gay, I think it's a reflection of our treatment of people who are gay in our society. I think it's a reflection of the verbal abuse, the discrimination, like we talk about, a little physical abuse. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but the tormenting, the bullying, the other things that put people at risk are why I think it's difficult to be gay in our society. I don't think that being gay makes you in and of itself more likely to have psychopathology. I think that the depression and the anxiety and the suicidal stuff associated with being gay is really a function of our heterosexist society. And finally, that's a kind of another important guiding principle, is just the whole word as far as what do we call this? Do we call our negative society attitudes towards gay homophobia or heterosexism? I'm deliberately choosing the word heterosexism. Homophobia kind of legitimizes the word. You can be afraid of cats or dogs or whatever things, and we have the lovely little different terms for phobia for those things. But being afraid of gay people, it's not okay, and to use the word homophobia kind of legitimizes it and makes it like it's okay that you're gay. But that's really not true. It's not really okay to be against gay people. I feel like that's overt discrimination, and we need to sort through it. If you feel that way. All those things said, I'm excited in terms of where our culture's come. I've been practicing psychology now for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. And in that, I've seen massive changes, massive societal changes in terms of how we treat and how we legitimize gay relationships. We have a long way to go. I'm not saying that. But changes within Defense of Marriage Act, changes within same-sex marriage, legitimization of some marriages as far as same-sex marriages in states, we've come a long way. So those are some of the important kind of things to get us started. Now let me see where I want to go. Where I want to go is I want to talk to you about, first I want to talk to you about the experience of kids who are gay, adolescents who are gay. Among those adolescents, a recent study showed, I have to look here, sorry. Anyway, so roughly we have maybe between 5 and 10% of the population is gay, bisexual. It varies who's studying, who's asking. If you ask about engagement in actual homosexual behavior, it's much higher, or same-sex behavior. But because we live in such an anti-gay society, it's difficult to assess the numbers, okay? Because how would you want to disclose that you're gay? That's always a really tricky thing, and who's asking and why am I disclosing? So there's a large extent to which people don't want to admit that in terms of surveys and things like that. So to get an accurate numbers as far as the number of gay people, you really have to think about how do I protect in terms of anonymity and in terms of safety. Safety is important. This is a recent study. Among gay youth, 14 to 21-year-olds, okay, when they were surveyed, 80% of them have experienced verbal abuse. 30% of them have been chased or followed. 17% have been physically assaulted because they're gay. 10%, that's a really high number, have been assaulted with a weapon. And 44% have been threatened to be attacked because they're gay. So what we have is a tremendous society attitude of violence, or a society okay with violence, and a society that is anti-gay, that makes it a really unsafe place to be a gay person. Matthew Shepard is certainly our most poignant example, but there's so many other examples that we could talk about that are violence against gay people. What happens, I think, how does this impact gay development? What we've got is, it's hard enough to be a kid who's an adolescent, who's coming to terms with being straight in the world. Adolescence is an incredibly difficult time. But to be an adolescent who's gay, coming to terms with being gay in this world, is even harder. Let alone all the varying degrees of, I'm generalizing when I use the word gay, right? Say I'm 60-40 or 70-30 or 80-20. I really see human sexuality on a continuum. I don't see it as all or none, nor do I see it as 50-50. I see there's incredible variation in how people are attracted to other genders and why and what types of situations and everything else. So when we look at this and just say gay or not gay or bisexual or not, I feel like we're just glossing over these huge variations and differences. But anyway, as hard as it is for a kid to come out, or to explore their own sexuality in our society being straight, it's incredibly harder for a kid who's bisexual or gay. What happens is, throughout all the stages of adolescence, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, being gay makes it more difficult to navigate each of those stages. Most kids who are gay say, even when I look back as myself as a child, I knew I was different. I knew something was different about me. I felt different. And to try to help kids put their finger on what was that. Now we know that kids who are gay tend to engage in more cross-gender play, okay, more stereotypical other-gendered play, so tomboy, girl play, if they're a boy, sissy, whatever else, all this kind of stuff. So we know little girls who are gay much more likely to like trucks, to like sports, to like those things. So that doesn't mean if your little girl likes sports, she's going to be gay. And in part, I want to say, and so what if she is? Even the assumption that we raise a child, when you have a little baby that's born to you, you make this assumption that that baby is heterosexual. And our whole language is about, someday you'll get married and you'll fall in love with a girl and you'll da-da-da. And we never talk about it in terms of, with kids, that it might be okay that they would be gay, that they might be gay, and that would be okay. We don't use that language with little babies. So anyway, same with boys who are gay. When they were kids, they often played with dolls, Barbies, dress-ups, whatever else, Disney princesses, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean that all kids who do those things are going to be gay. It means that when kids look back, they say, yeah, I remember doing that as a kid. One of my favorite gay people in the world loved magic, Disney shows, ballet, and he's now a wonderful, wonderful, delightful young adult with a partner, and he's just awesome, right? But when you look back on his life, what he played with as a kid was different, you know. The research is showing that kids come out at an earlier age. Okay, so more kids are identifying with gay at an earlier age, and they're coming out as an earlier age. I think that's a good sign. I think it shows that there's more acceptance in our society. Among residential treatment kids, whom I deal with a lot with kids with emotional behavior problems, they're much more likely to say they're gay than they were 20 years ago. I see that clinically. I see evidence of that statistic in terms of my clinical practice. And I think that's an encouraging sign. There is a caveat there that I want to say. I want to say that I don't want children to identify too early with gay in terms of identity foreclosure. Okay, so just hang with me for a minute. If a kid knows they're gay, they've always known they're gay, that's fine, that's awesome, that's great. But sometimes what I see is kids saying they're gay and they haven't even explored that, they don't even understand that, that it can become a trendy thing to do, or it can become just a way, just of saying like, I'm a Christian, or I'm gay, or I'm going to be a firefighter, or I'm going to be on American Idol, or I'm the rebel, or I'm an emo, or I'm this. I never want kids to disclose or to determine too early who they are. I want them to explore. You know, adolescence is a time to explore who you are and what it means. So I want adolescents to take the time to figure out, you know, who am I? And that includes sexual identity too. So I always want there to be some degree of let's explore who you are and what it means. In general, I think our negative societal attitudes towards gay people complicate their development extraordinarily. Erickson's going to give you, I'm going to use Erickson's model. Okay, Erik Erikson, 8 stages of development. Okay, should be ringing bells. You should know those 8 stages. You should be able to listen to me in order. I'm going to try that in a minute myself, so we'll see. So being gay complicates all those 8 stages. Let's take a look at that in a little bit slower, not too slow, don't panic. Basic trust versus mistrust. Again, we have this assumption that all kids are straight, so from the beginning, if a kid feels like they might be gay, it feels like the first sense of self from our society is heterosexual. So a kid who's gay feels like from the very first, maybe I can't trust myself, maybe I can't trust the world, because I don't feel heterosexual. So and I know we're talking little babies, we're talking they can't get their fingers on, they don't have a sexual orientation per se, but we know from the beginning that there's just this pervasive sense of like, I don't fit in, okay? And that's why I think most kids report from a very early age feeling different. The next stage of Erikson is shame versus doubt. What happens with a kid who's gay? I feel the sense of shame. I feel the sense of doubt. I don't feel the sense of autonomy. I'm not sure who I am. I don't have a good sense of my personal power in the world. I feel limited in that. The next sense of initiative versus guilt. And what's happened in this stage is kind of, this is that ages 3 to 6. Well, okay, Freud had talked about the whole Oedipal complex thing going on, and I'm not so big on that. But nevertheless, we have a lot of gender stereotypical play that happens 3 to 6. Okay, we have a lot of identification with same-sex parent. Okay, we have those things. And so when a child is gay, then you feel like, okay, I can identify with my dad or my mom in some ways, but not in other ways. And so this is a very difficult sense for a child. And so that stage of initiative versus guilt may be resolved in more ways where I feel guilty for being who I am. And so now you've got to feel mistrustful and doubtful and guilty for being who I am. Not always, but a lot. Industry versus inferiority, I think. These are the latency years, as Freud called them. I'm not big on that term, but I think these are still difficult years for kids. This is kind of 6 through 12 for kids who are gay, because I think they're setting it up to feel like, I do feel different than my peers. And these are big ages of peer comparisons and peer identity. And so when you feel different than your peer, it's really difficult. The next stage is identity consolidation versus identity diffusion. So adolescence, right? And oh my gosh. Straight kids are already figuring out who am I and who am I not. So if you're gay, you're really super feeling like, who am I not? How do I compare to others? What are my strengths and weaknesses? How do I develop the sense to care for myself and to nurture myself? How do I figure out who I am in this world? And we look increasingly to our peer group to support and define that. Well, if you're gay, it's very hard to be able to understand that and to look at who I am in this world. So, it's an incredibly difficult time. How do I see myself on this continuum if I'm gay? The thing is a local psychologist who I greatly trust and respect, Dr. Rick Purvis, and he talks about gifts in the closet, okay? And that not just is there shame in the closet, but there's gifts in the closet. And how do we come to understand what are the good parts of being gay? But it takes kids a while to get to that point. We look at the next stage of Erikson, intimacy versus isolation. Well, if you're straight, you're expected to date. You're expected to experiment with your sexuality. It's normal, right? We get worried if kids don't. But what if to be gay means it's unsafe to explore that? How do you know if it's okay to explore sexuality or not? How do you know it's okay to explore those partner relationships? When you all were adolescents, you went through some awkward moments in your dating relationships, okay? You practice makes perfect. You got better at relationships as you went. But if you're gay, it's difficult to have those times to practice. It's difficult to know, is it safe? Is this person gay? Who am I going to date? How am I going to date? Is our society going to be violent to me if I date? So it gets really difficult. Generativity versus stagnation. This is a big issue for me, our middle-aged people. What in the world do we do to adults who are gay, right? We say they can't be around my child. I don't want him to be my scout leader. I don't want him to be in my priesthood. I don't want him to be in my neighborhood, okay? We have all these assumptions, which are totally unsupported, that a gay person's more likely to be a pedophile. Dude, that's not even... Stop that madness, okay? There's not any research to support that. Most people who sexually abuse kids don't even identify as being gay, even when they're a man sexually abusing a boy. Totally different dynamics. Let's take that off the table, okay? That has nothing to do with being gay. And because you're gay, doesn't mean you're more likely